The diplomatic incident. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered under the light of 3 artificial suns. The massive dome, constructed from rare crystalline materials harvested from the core of dying stars, housed representatives from over 400 species across the known universe. Today marked the 70th cycle of negotiations between the Voraxis Imperium and the Zenthian Collective, a territorial dispute that threatened to destabilize an entire sector of space. Arch-Mediator Tilvex, a 12-limbed Coraxian whose silvery skin reflected the chamber's light in hypnotic patterns, floated at the center of the hall. His species was renowned for their impartiality, which made them perfect mediators in galactic disputes. Behind him, holographic displays showed the contested region, the mineral-rich Cygnus Expanse, with its 17 habitable worlds and vast asteroid fields containing rare elements. Cycle 70 begins, announced the Chamber's eye in 600 different languages simultaneously. The Grand Assembly acknowledges all representatives present. In their designated observation pod, 5 humans sat with varying expressions of frustration. Unlike the other species present, who had elaborate environmental chambers or gravitational adjusters, the humans had requested simple chairs and a standard atmosphere mix. Their simplicity had initially been viewed as charming by the older council members. Now, 70 cycles later, the human delegation's growing impatience was becoming evident. Ambassador Diana Keller, head of the human delegation, tapped her stylus against her datapad. Next to her, Commander Jackson Chen, military advisor to the Earth Alliance, whispered something that made her frown deepen. The 3 other humans, a xenolinguist, a cultural attaché, and an economic analyst, exchanged glances. Keller's presence here was unusual. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 87 years ago. The Council had invited them as observers to these negotiations because the disputed region bordered human space. According to galactic diplomatic protocol, new species were expected to observe for centuries before participating in major negotiations. The Voraxis Imperium reasserts its historical claim to the Cygnus Expanse, declared High Chancellor Vrox, his massive reptilian form rising on a hovering platform. Our archives clearly document our presence in the region for over 9 millennia. The Zenthian Collective disputes this claim. Countered Prime Coordinator Zenthiexa, her bioluminescent appendages flashing in complex patterns that indicated diplomatic disagreement. The archives referenced are from the pre-Reconstruction era and cannot be verified. Our settlement efforts began when the region was unclaimed. Tilvex raised 4 of his limbs in a gesture requesting patience. The Council recognizes both historical perspectives. As we determined in cycles 1 through 69, verification of historical claims requires further analysis. The Committee of Temporal Verification has requested another 50 cycles to complete their assessment. At this, Ambassador Keller made a sound that, in human terms, could only be described as a derisive snort. Several nearby delegates turned their sensory organs toward the human observation pod. Ambassador Keller of Earth, the Council acknowledges your reaction, Tilvex said, his tone gentle but firm. Observers are reminded that vocalizations can be interpreted as formal communications in this chamber. Keller stood, straightening her navy blue diplomatic uniform. With respect, Arch-Mediator, I would like to formally request speaking privileges. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many delegates activated privacy fields to discuss this unprecedented request among themselves. Observers, especially those from new species, simply did not speak during high-level negotiations. After a moment of consultation with other senior mediators, Tilvex inclined his upper body. The Council grants temporary speaking privileges to the Earth representative in the spirit of inclusivity. The human perspective may provide fresh insight. Keller nodded and activated the podium's communication system. Her image appeared on hovering displays throughout the chamber. Thank you, Arch-Mediator. Her voice was clear and unwavering. For 70 cycles, which by human standards is approximately 4 months, we have observed these negotiations. During this time, 17 border skirmishes have occurred in the disputed region, resulting in the loss of 43 Voraxist lives and 59 Zenthian lives. She paused, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. While the Council debates historical archives and forms committees, people are dying. Ships are being destroyed. Resources that could benefit both civilizations are sitting untapped. And your solution is to spend another 50 cycles on research. Chancellor Vrox's scales darkened with indignation. The human fails to comprehend the complexities of our historical context. These matters cannot be rushed. With respect, Chancellor, Keller replied, I understand perfectly. What I fail to comprehend is why two advanced civilizations would choose endless debate over practical solutions. Coordinator Zenthi X's appendages flashed rapidly. What would humans suggest? Your species has barely emerged from your solar system. The collective has existed for 12,000 years. Keller's expression remained calm. Age doesn't always equal wisdom. We have reviewed all public documents regarding this dispute. There are 17 habitable worlds in the region. Split them evenly, 8 for each side, with one designated as a shared scientific and cultural exchange hub. Divide the asteroid fields along the natural gravitational boundaries. Establish a joint security force with equal representation. Problem solved. The chamber erupted in chaos. Such a simplistic approach to complex territorial negotiations was unheard of. Dozens of delegates demanded to speak simultaneously. Tilvex raised all 12 limbs, restoring order after several minutes. Ambassador Keller, while we appreciate your directness, galactic diplomacy requires methodical consideration of all factors. The Council's processes have maintained peace for over 9,000 years. Except they haven't, Keller said, her voice sharp. There have been 17 armed conflicts just during these negotiations. Your processes aren't working. She gathered her materials and nodded to her team, who stood as one. The Earth Alliance appreciates being included as observers, but we can no longer participate in what appears to be deliberately prolonged inaction. Until the Council is ready to implement actual solutions rather than endlessly debate them, we will pursue our own diplomatic relationships with both the Imperium and the collective individually. With that, Ambassador Keller and her entire delegation walked toward the chamber's exit. This is highly irregular, exclaimed Senior Delegate Philox of the Ancient Concordat. Observers cannot simply leave mid-session. Keller paused at the door. Watch us, she said, and then the humans were gone. The chamber descended into unprecedented disorder. In 9,000 years of Council history, no delegation, observer or otherwise, had ever simply walked out of peace negotiations. It was more than a breach of protocol. It was a fundamental challenge to how the galaxy conducted diplomacy. What the Council members didn't know, as they argued about the meaning of this human action, was that Earth's fleet was already on the move, not toward the disputed region, but into carefully calculated positions that would become significant in the cycles to come. Tilvex, sensing the gravity of what had just occurred, declared an emergency recess. As delegates dispersed, the Arch-Mediator requested urgent intelligence reports on human military capabilities and diplomatic patterns. Something told him that dismissing this incident as the impulsiveness of a young species would be a dangerous mistake. In a secure communication chamber adjacent to the main hall, Tilvex conferred with the Council's Strategic Assessment Division. What do we know about human negotiation tactics? He asked. The division chief, a hyper-intelligent AI housed in a mobile unit, projected a series of analyses. Humans employ what they call walking away from the table as a negotiation tactic. Historical data from their pre-FTL era suggests they use this approach to force expedited resolutions. Are they bluffing? Tilvex asked. Unknown, replied the AI. However, preliminary reports indicate unusual movement patterns in their defensive fleet. As the Council scrambled to understand the implications of the human departure, Ambassador Keller and her team were already boarding their ship. The next moves in this diplomatic game would change interstellar relations forever, and reveal whether humans had made a catastrophic mistake or a brilliant strategic maneuver. The consequences of humanity's stance. 2 days after the human delegation's dramatic exit, the Grand Assembly Hall was once again filled to capacity. This time, however, the atmosphere was charged with tension rather than the usual bureaucratic lethargy. Emergency session protocols have been activated, a rare occurrence that hadn't been necessary in over 3 centuries. Arch-mediator Tilvex occupied the central podium, his normally silvery skin now a troubled shade of gray. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in progress," he announced, his voice lacking its usual serene quality. "We face an unprecedented diplomatic situation that requires immediate attention." Holographic displays throughout the chamber showed real-time tactical maps of the contested Cygnus expanse, but everyone's attention was focused on the movement of ships at the region's edges. Human ships. "The Strategic Intelligence Division will present their assessment," Tilvex said, yielding the central platform to a Methusian analyst whose species specialized in predictive modeling. "Honored representatives," the analyst began, her crystalline form refracting light in anxious patterns. "In the 48 hours since the human delegation's departure, we have observed significant repositioning of Earth Alliance vessels. Their pattern does not suggest aggression, but rather strategic flexibility." The displays shifted to show 27 human warships moving into formation near the borders of both the Voraxis Imperium and the Zenthian Collective territories. They were not in attack formations, but their positions were perfect for rapid response to any developing situation in the disputed region. Chancellor Vrox stood on his platform, scales flushed with anger. "This is outrageous. The humans have no authority to position military assets near our sovereign space. Their status as galactic citizens should be immediately reviewed." "I concur," said Coordinator Zenthiexa, her appendages flashing patterns of alarm. "This must be interpreted as a threat. The collective moves to request immediate sanctions against Earth." Tilvex raised several limbs for silence. "Before we proceed with such measures, we must consider all information. Our intelligence division has intercepted diplomatic communications of interest." The central display changed to show records of communications between Earth representatives and both disputing parties. The council members watched in disbelief as the logs revealed that both the Imperium and the Collective had agreed to separate direct negotiations with human mediators. "This is a violation of council protocol," exclaimed Senior Delegate Philox. "All disputes of this magnitude must be mediated through proper council channels." "Perhaps," Tilvex acknowledged, "but it appears that both the Imperium and Collective have independently chosen to circumvent those channels. We must understand why." A new figure approached the speaking platform, Ambassador Lorix of the Arcturian Republic, one of the galaxy's oldest democracies and a close trading partner with Earth. "Esteemed colleagues," Lorix began, "I believe we are misunderstanding human diplomatic methodology. My species has engaged with humans extensively over the past decades. What appears to us as impulsiveness is actually impatience with inefficiency." The ambassador activated his own display showing Earth's history of conflict resolution. "Humans have an unusual capacity for both warfare and peacemaking. Throughout their pre-contact history, their most successful diplomatic achievements often came after threatening to abandon negotiations. They call it creating deadline pressure." Chancellor Vrox scoffed. "So they manipulate through threats?" "Not exactly," Lorix replied. "They create consequences for inaction. Consider our current situation. 70 cycles of negotiations with no progress. Now, suddenly, both the Imperium and Collective are rushing to engage in direct talks, something neither was willing to do before." Tilvex's skin shifted toward its normal silver hue as understanding dawned. "You suggest this was a calculated move, not an emotional response." "Precisely," Lorix said. "And there's more. Our intelligence suggests that the human delegation presented both parties with the exact same proposal Ambassador Keller outlined here: equal division of worlds, shared access to the 17th planet, and joint security arrangements. But with one addition. Earth offered to serve as the neutral guarantor of the agreement, with their fleet providing enforcement if either side violates terms. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Humans hadn't abandoned the peace process. They had simply changed its parameters. This is an outrageous circumvention of Council authority, Senior Delegate Philox insisted. Perhaps, acknowledged Tilvex, but we must consider, is our authority more important than actual peace? At that moment, the Chamber's communication system activated with an incoming transmission request from Earth. After a brief consultation with other senior mediators, Tilvex authorized the connection. Ambassador Keller's face appeared on the main display. Unlike her previous appearance, she now wore a slight smile. Greetings, Arch-Mediator Tilvex, honored representatives of the Galactic Council. I apologize for the unconventional nature of our actions, but I am pleased to report the significant development. Both the Voraxis Imperium and the Zenthian Collective have reached a preliminary agreement regarding the Cygnus Expanse. Displays throughout the chamber updated to show the terms, remarkably similar to what Keller had proposed during her brief address to the Council. 8 worlds assigned to each civilization, 1 designated for joint development, asteroid fields divided along natural gravitational boundaries, and a trilateral security force including human peacekeepers. This is not how galactic diplomacy functions, Philox protested. With respect, Keller replied, perhaps it should be. The agreement achieves in 2 days what 70 cycles of council mediation could not. No more lives will be lost while committees debate historical archives. Chancellor Vrox and Coordinator Zenthixa both activated their communication channels. The Imperium finds these terms acceptable, Vrox stated, his tone grudging but definitive. Human directness, while initially offensive, has proven efficient. The collective concurs, added Zenthixa. We have agreed to commence withdrawal of military assets within 24 hours, with human vessels verifying compliance from both parties. The council chamber erupted in a mixture of outrage and astonishment. Tilvex required several minutes to restore order. Ambassador Keller, the arch-mediator, finally said, while the council acknowledges the apparent success of your intervention, there are serious concerns about your methods. Earth has effectively undermined 9,000 years of established diplomatic protocol. Keller nodded. We understand those concerns, arch-mediator. However, Earth believes that results matter more than process when lives are at stake. We did not act to challenge council authority, but to demonstrate that sometimes unorthodox approaches yield better outcomes. She paused, then added, the Earth Alliance formally requests full diplomatic status within the Council, not as observers but as active participants. We believe our perspective could be valuable in resolving other long-standing conflicts. Tilvex consulted briefly with other senior council members before responding. The Council will need to deliberate on this request. Your methods have produced results, but have also created disruption. Disruption can lead to progress, Keller replied. We look forward to the Council's decision. In the meantime, we will continue implementing the peace agreement. Keller out. As her image faded, the Council chamber remained unusually quiet. For the first time in centuries, the representatives of hundreds of civilizations found themselves confronting a fundamental question. Had their cherished diplomatic processes become so focused on procedure that they have forgotten their purpose? Tilvex, sensing the mood of the chamber, spoke softly. Perhaps it is time for the Council to consider that age does not always equal wisdom, and that even the youngest species might have something to teach the oldest. In the days that followed, the peace agreement held. Human ships monitored the withdrawal of both Voraxis and Zenthian forces from contested areas. Development plans for the shared world began, and throughout the galaxy, other species with long-standing disputes began to request human diplomatic advisors, much to the consternation of traditional council mediators. 6 cycles later, the Galactic Council voted, not unanimously, but by a significant majority, to grant Earth full diplomatic status. Ambassador Keller accepted the position with characteristic directness. Earth thanks the Council for this recognition. She said during the formal ceremony, "We do not intend to dismantle 9,000 years of tradition, but rather to help evolve it." Sometimes the most powerful diplomatic move is simply being willing to walk away, not from peace, but from processes that prevent it. As human diplomatic teams began integrating into Council operations, older species watched with a mixture of alarm and fascination. The humans had done what no species had managed in millennia. They had forced the Galactic Council to adapt. Among the Council's senior members, a new saying began to circulate. When negotiations stall, send a human. They either find a solution or create one. The galaxy would never be the same again.